Okay, and good morning to you out there listening and watching this morning on S Live, Africa, Ghana's biggest online radio station. Yes, and where you come to learn about blackness, Africa, and everything I be before, you know what I'm saying? So, once again, good morning to you, all of you listening online, all the people on Avram Ben Moshe's Chronicles of Avram bin Moshe, good morning to you. And all of you listening on bb2me.com, I say good morning to you. Today, we are going to learn about some African spirituality that was stolen by Christendom. This is what we are going to do. We are to have Avram bin Moshe via the telephone long line, the show. So today my guest will be Dr. Obadele Kambon, our usual guest on every Monday from the University of Ghana Institute of African Studies department, and he is going to be in the studio. He's already in the studios here. So those of you listening or watching on bitumi.com, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, those of you watching, you've seen him already. This morning, before I start the show, I chanced upon an article, quite lengthy one, but I'll see if I can read a bit of it, and then later on I finish it. The article was written on myjoyonline.com, and the title of the article is Glory Hallelujah. Welcome to Theological Neo-Colonial Ghana. Glory Hallelujah. Welcome to Theological Neo-Colonial Ghana. Every time I have read it myself to write over the last few months, my pen script has been opened by absolutely incredible events and situations that are unique and puzzling to most logical individuals. We live in a country born into wealth called Ghana, yet every step forward we take quick a few quite a few in reverse. It will be interesting if no lives were at stake, but that is not the case. I started my recent musing when the proposed opening of the quaternary referral medical center at the University of Ghana did not occur as a result of political Schengen, and completely oblivious of the lives being lost daily as the tit for tat NDC NPP players on the national stage followed their usual childish, unproductive script of mutual blame. I hope pertinence are being cared for now. I'm afraid to verify, lest I lose faith in humanity. I found it all very callous. Not long after the Ameri Bruhaha took on the starring role in the national tragicomedy, the president had apparently done his due diligence and sent the document to double salary parliament for approval. On no, oh no, oh no, not too fast, not too fast. A number of number crunches, more depth at math than I began to expose, the enormous cost that the revision of the Mary deal would entail. The presidency went into reverse gear, claiming ineptly that the whole president of our nation had been misled. Exit Energy Minister Jaco. It was like amateur night at the Apollo Theater. I had hardly caught my breath on that one when tinkering with the 110 ministerial orchestra took place. What was that about? I approach national issues with the nationalistic attitude. So in the last election, I truly hoped Akufo-Addo would win because I hopefully expected him to act more in the national interest than I had experience with the Mahama administration. He won. There was a sigh of a relief with Mahama's exit and so much political capital invested in Akufo-Addo from many non-MPP supporters in the overriding national interest. I have never quite gotten over the 110 ministers, but as an over hopeful Ghanaian, I wait solid evidence that it was good idea. Nepotism is the harbinger of ineffectual and non-objective management, and that was another layer of chocolate cream or icing spread over there. So I think, as I said, this is quite lengthy one, but I'll come back to it. All that he's talking about is that in a country where children write in dust in school, they don't have books, neither do they have slates. I know those of you who were not that fortunate to be in the Dabi schools, you realize that at kindergarten you have a slate, a black kind of blackboard in your hands that you write on. These children that I watch on GH1 don't have either a slate or a book. They use the dust in the classroom as their writing board. That's where they write. And the writer is talking about the fact that in the midst of all of this, if our government will not see it as important to spend money on classrooms, but will spend money on cathedral, building of cathedral, then we've missed the script, because that is the most important thing that Ghana needs right about now. Right now, our president is in China trying to get some money that Ghana will pay in 100 years. Okay? And China is a country where they don't care about cathedrals. You know, China don't care about cathedrals. They don't have one. But they've been able to make their country strong, wealthy, to be able to give a country that is going to use 40 million just on a land, not the building itself. I mean, so this raises more questions than answers. And this morning on my way to the studio on radio, I heard that the Catholic Bishop Conference has come out to say they never had an idea about this cathedral thing. So government was telling us that, it wasn't government project, but the Christian community is the one that is pushing for this and are going to pay for this. But are there better Christian than the Catholic bishops? So if they come out to say they don't know anything about it, we're not consulted, it should tell you where it is coming from anyway. So that is what the writer is talking about, that Ghana has now turned into theoretical neo-colonial country. And I agree with that. Anyway, before I digress, let's come back to the studios. Dr. Obadele Kambon is seated, and we are going to go into our discussion. As I said, I will let Avram Bemoshe join us via the telephone this morning on the topic we are about to discuss about African concepts, spiritual concepts stolen by Christianity. That is what we are going to talk about. So let me open the microphone for Dr. Obadele. Doctor, good morning. Apom to say. Nyamenadom. Cathedral say Basona say traditional so your mama baby say mun sumunya made o ha enye papa.
What's assembly say? So down on a side, you so assembly, so we know. A outro. Yeah, you who say outro. And yes, sir, my fa no currency on after the Yamfa outron some batam. I know the any no cremoni abra. Inti and ya bakata sa abrano huna, ya hunsenia, yabakon.
Oh, okay. So we are looking at African concept. It looks like we've touched on this before. Yes, but we need to I said by your don't for boho ken na just say ehiano. So we need to go over this again, looking at African spiritual concept stolen by Christendom or Christianity. Where do we start from?
Okay, so I want us to start. There's a book that I would recommend, and I'll recommend several different books as we go through. The first one is Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization.
Okay.
And in it, the author has a comparison between the lives of Heru, what the Greeks referred to as Horus, and Jesus Christ. And basically the idea is that the story of Heru dates back to 3200 BCE, around 5,200 years ago. And then the story of so-called Jesus Christ dates to whenever it's supposed to have happened. Now, if there was anyone, a historical figure ever called Jesus in the world, then he could have gone and read his own life story, his own biography before he was ever born, because that biography, that life story is wholly plagiarized from the story of Heru. But let me actually give you the comparisons. So Horus had two mothers, Isis the Virgin, who conceived him, and I'm reading from Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, my brother Anthony Browder. Horus had two mothers, Isis the Virgin, who conceived him, and Nephthys, who nursed him. He was brought forth singly as one of 5 brothers. So, according to the so-called Jesus story, Jesus had 2 mothers, Mary the Virgin, who conceived him, and Mary the wife of Cleophas, who brought him forth as one of her 5 children. Horus was with his mother, the Virgin, until 12 years old, when he was transformed into the beloved Son of God, and as the only begotten Father in heaven. And we'll go into the problems we talked about, the problems with the translation of God and so forth and so on. Jesus remained with his mother, the Virgin, up to the age of 12 years, when he left her to be about his Father's business. So again, up to the age of 12 we have. From 12 to 30 years of age, there's no record in the life of Horus. And then from 12 to 30 years of age, there's no record in the life of Jesus. Horus at 30 years of age became an adult, and his baptism by Anpu, who they call Anubis. Jesus at 30 years of age was made a man in his baptism by John the Baptist. Horus in his baptism made his transformation into the beloved Son and only begotten Son of the Father, the Holy Spirit, represented by a bird. Jesus in his baptism is hailed from heaven as the beloved Son and only begotten of the Father, God, the Holy Spirit, represented by a dove. So these are just a few of the parallels that are there. And I think you had something you wanted to come in with. Are you okay?
No, like what you're giving us is giving us a clear comparison how they saw the African stories in Egypt and copied it for Jesus.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly what we're going into. So again, you can go and read the original text in the pyramid text, and then in the coffin text, and then the book of Coming Forth by Day. What the dead in the head, white Eurasians call it the book of the dead, just because they're dead in the head. But again,
No, say that again. They call the book of the dead because they are dead in the head.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Whereas the book itself is called the Book of Coming Forth by Day. That's what you see written on it itself.
Okay. So if you're listening right now, that is a book that you can get all this reference that Doc is talking about, where Christianity copied the concept of Jesus and his virgin birth mother and all of that from.
Right. And you can actually see that at the temple in what they now call Luxor, which in ancient times was called Waset. I want to give another comparison between Akhenaten's hymn and Psalm 104. So Akhenaten's hymn dates to around 1353 BCE. Psalm 104, if you try to extend it, you can date it to around 1000 BCE. So according to Akhenaten's hymn, the world is in darkness like the dead. Every lion cometh forth from his den, all serpents sting, darkness reigns. According to Psalm 104, thou makest darkness and it is night. So the original one, the world's in darkness like the dead. And then let's come back to Psalm 104, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep, young lions roar after their prey. So the original says, every lion cometh forth from its den, all serpents sting, darkness reigns. So you see this. Again, now we go to Akhenaten's hymn. This is the original. When thou risest in the horizon, the darkness is banished. Then all in the world they do their work. Now Psalm 104, the sun riseth, man goeth forth unto his work, and to his labor until the evening. So again, sunrise, people go to work. They basically got this wholesale. We continue. All trees and plants flourish. This is Akhenaten's hymn. All trees
in which book are you reading from?
So this is again in Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization.
Okay.
Right. So he gives these parallels to show this was a contribution to civilization.
Okay.
Some would say it's a contribution to barbarism because the Eurasians, these pale white enemies, if you want to call anything they do civilization, it's a bit of a stretch. It's more like barbarism, as the historical record has attested. But I digress. So Akhenaten's hymn, all trees and plants flourish. The birds flutter in their marshes. All sheep dance upon their feet. Now we come to Psalm 104, and this is all in the same order,
so
right?
from the Kemetic book,
Exactly.
this is what the book says.
Exactly.
And what is the year interval between this book
About 353 years.
before
Right.
the supposed coming of Christ?
This is before Psalm 104, so this is coming from the so-called Hebrew scriptures.
Okay,
right?
the Old Testament.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so according to your studies or research, the quotation in Psalm what?
Psalm 104.
Psalm 104. So if you're listening, you can write it down. Was taken from the
Akhenaten's
book
hymn.
Akhenaten's hymn.
Right.
The,
To the Aten.
okay. So read that. Read from the Psalm. The Psalms. Let's hear.
Okay, so Akhenaten's hymn again. All trees and plants flourish. The birds flutter in their marches. All sheep dance upon their feet. In the psalm, the trees of the Lord are full of sap, wherein the birds make their nests. The high hills are the refuge for the wild goats. Right. So you have the trees and sap. You have the birds after that. In the original it says sheep. In the plagiarized version it says goats. And then we go back to Akhenaten's hymn. The ships sail upstream and downstream alike. The fish in the river leap up before thee, and thy rays are in the midst of the great sea. Now we come to Psalm. So is this great and wide sea, wherein are things creeping innumerable, both small and great and beasts. There go the ships. So it has everything in the exact same order, and this is just coming from the translation. Now we come to Akhenaten's hymn. How manifold are all thy works. Thou didst create the earth according to thy desire. Men, all cattle, all that are upon the earth. So we start off with how manifold are all thy works. So now we'll go to Psalm 104. O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy creatures. So again, this is basically a translation. And this is what happens when you do translations. So they didn't get it exact word for word, but they have all the elements one after the other in the exact same sequence, in the exact same order.
And sometimes, don't you think it was deliberate to let people feel like they didn't get it so that it doesn't look like it was copied from somewhere?
This is what my students who plagiarize tend to try to do. And, I warn them. So I teach academic writing, and I warn them against plagiarism. But the ones who try to plagiarize, that's often what I see is, let me change one word here or whatever. But even when you summarize, you still have to cite the original work. Now, again, this is still Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. I'll give you other texts as well, such as the instruction of Amenemope. We'll go to that one. Kersey Graves, he has a book, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Dr. John G. Jackson has The Pagan Origins of the Christ Myth. Gerald Massey has Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, and even before that. And we're talking about in the 1800s, so this isn't new information. This isn't breaking news. This is what whites themselves were writing about way back in the 1800s. And even before that, Godfrey Higgins, Anacalypsis, 1833, thereabout. So all of this information, to just be hearing about it in so-called 2018, it really tells us the state of our mentality and how we can have a whole president who is trying to build a national cathedral. Perhaps we should call it a national insane asylum, because we don't call it Christianity, we call it Christ insanity, right? But we'll continue. Now also, as was mentioned, in the temple of Luxor are scenes that depict the following: the Annunciation, the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Birth, and the Adoration. Now, if any of that sounds familiar, you've probably heard it from the plagiarized version. Now, you can actually see it and I have it here pulled up right now. The Annunciation, the Necher Jehuti, is shown announcing to the Virgin Aset the coming birth of their son Heru, right? The Immaculate Conception, the Necher Hanef, who represents the Holy Ghost, and Necher Het Heru, Hathor, are shown symbolically impregnating Aset by holding Ankh, symbols of life, to the nostrils of the Virgin to be. The virgin birth, Aset, is shown sitting on the birthing stool, and the newborn child is attended by midwives. The adoration, the newborn Heru, is portrayed receiving gifts from the three kings or magi while being adored by a host of gods and men. Now, again, what's profound about this is that also you see this on the temple of Seti the first, and in it you see Aset in the form of a kite, which is a type of bird. When you talk about the kite that you fly, is named after that type of bird. So you see her in the form of a kite, and she is being impregnated by her husband, who was dead and then resurrected in order to bring forth the Savior, which is Heru. Now, again, what's profound is that all of these stories are just allegories for what's actually going on in the sky.
When you say allegories, what do you mean?
I'm saying that you have a personification of what you see in the night sky in constellations, right? So if you see a constellation and then you say, so you'll hear people say, oh, I'm Gemini, or I'm Virgo, or I'm whatever, that all of these are anthropomorphized. It's a big word that just says, I'm going to look at this constellation and deal with it like it's a person or it's something that I'm familiar with, whether it's a crab or whatever, right? So when you, and this is something that everybody, I want you to test this December, right? You can download an app called Sky Map, right? And what you'll be able to do is actually see the stars clearer than you can see in a crowd because of all the reflection and lights and light pollution. But what you will be able to see is on December 21st, you'll see that the sun, when it goes down to the lowest point, and then it stays at that lowest point for 3 days. And you'll again be able to see this in the constellations behind it, because that's what the app is able to do. You just point it in the direction. It'll show you the stars that are behind where the sun rises. And on December 25th, after the sun is quote unquote dead for 3 days, then it starts to rise, right? And that rising happens on December 25th, which is why Heru was said to have been born on December 25th. All these saviors, so again, the world's 16 crucified saviors, goes into it's not just Heru, even though Heru was the first.
Exactly. I will let you go through the world 16 saviors one by one. But before then, let me tell our listeners and viewers that you can send in your questions and comments to Doc to talk about and answer them on 024 7785 986. 024-7785-986 on WhatsApp, and also on abibitumi.com. You can go to abibitumi.com and sign up right now and send all your questions to Doc. And as a matter of fact, all the documents he's teaching us from are also available free on abibitumi.com. It is abibitumi.com. abibitumi.com. That is abibitumi.com. You can go there and sign up and get all the information he's talking about. He's showing us the concept, the African spiritual concept that Christendom copied and has made it like it was originally theirs and all of that. So let's get interactive on abibitumi.com. And also can send, if you want me to read your message, send to me here on 024-7785-986, and we will do that. So continue.
Right, so again, we're going through all of these different parallels, and again, you can see where the original stories come from. Now, as I was mentioning that all of this is astrological, you're actually able to see this in the sky yourself every single year, every single December 25th. You can see these 3 stars that are called Orion today. And those 3 stars are in a row. And it's the easiest thing to see in the night sky. If you don't know any constellation, you can look and see 3 stars in a row. And those are referred to as the 3 kings. And if you continue to look at where they point to, you'll see the brightest star in the sky, which is nowadays called Sirius. At that ancient times in Kemet, it was called Sopdet, right? and it was a representation of Aset, what the Greeks called Isis, whereas the three kings was a representation of Osar, which is, what the Greeks call Osiris. So all of this is just telling you, so Osiris is the three stars, and they point to Isis, and then the son of Osar and Aset is now Heru, what the Greeks call Horus. And on December 25th, that line of the three stars pointing to Sirius, it shows you the exact point on the horizon where the sun will rise, right? So actually, I'm at Hacho, I worked this out, so I said, okay, let me go and look at it this year. So I went up, and with the sky map, you're able to see where the sun is going to rise before it even rises, so you can actually see it on before the sky starts to brighten, because it'll show you the constellations that are even below the horizon, and it also shows where the sun. So you can wait and then play this out at 5 a.m. You're seeing the sun's about to rise, and you actually see it come over the horizon. And when they talk about the 12 disciples, it's actually talking about the 12 constellations that the sun travels through, right?
Wait,
Yeah.
the 12 disciples are actually the 12 constellations in the skies.
Exactly. And all of this was very clear.
Majority of us listening and watching know about the 12 disciples, so take us to the 12 constellations. But don't forget, we'll go back to the 16 so-called messiahs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go through the constellations, it's the same thing in the zodiac. So you have your Capricorn, you have your Gemini, Libra, all of these things. So these are the zodiac that you have today. In ancient times, they had different names. So, for example, Pisces would be called Intiu, which is the fish. You would have something like Taurus, which is represented by the Apis bull, which was a representation of Asar and Ptah. So each one maps onto where the Greeks actually got it from. And what's also profound about that is that this is what they call astrological ages. And if you want to know more about this, you can look up the work of Dr. Charles Finch. He has the Astronomical Wheel of Heaven, which is a lecture where he goes very much in depth into this. But basically, a point that you can look at is that whatever is going on in the sky, which means that when the sun rises on December 25th, there's a particular constellation in the backdrop where it happens, right? And it changes every about 2,155 years. And this is telling you the age that you're in. So right now we're in Pisces, we're at the end of Pisces, and we're about to go into what they call Aquarius, which in ancient times would be Menat, the water giver, also called Hapi, which was the original name for the spirit of the Nile that would rise, right?
So, so which one? But once again, which one are we transitioning from?
So we're transitioning from Pisces, which is the age of the fish, which in ancient times would be called Intiu.
Some are saying that the ushering of into the age of the Pisces, or the fish, was came with too many religion. Why is it so?
Well, one thing that you find is that the age of the fish is there's a lot of fish symbolism in biblical things and Christianity things. So throughout the Bible, we're talking about feeding people with fish and fishermen and all these types of things. And I remember growing up in the U.S. on the back of cars, they would have like a little fish symbol, and in the symbol it would say Jesus, right? So basically what you have going on is and this is what I'm going into, what's going on the earth parallels what's actually going on in the skies. So during the age of the fish, this is where you have Christianity with all of its fish symbolism, which is predominant, and then all these other religions.
Okay, so you can see where Jesus told Peter to throw the net somewhere and they got some fish. Another symbolism of fish is when Jesus told the disciples to pay tithe. They didn't have money. He asked them to go fishing. They caught a fish, opened the belly, and they got some, I think, coins or gold. Go and pay their tithe and all of that. So what is the essence of the fish?
Right. Now, if you look back at Kemet, there's the idea that Osar, who they call Osiris, was cut up into various pieces, and Aset went all throughout the different nomes of Kemet, and she was able to retrieve all the pieces. But the one piece that she wasn't able to get was the phallus, right? The phallus being the penis, right? Very clear. Because that was thrown into Hapi, Itru, which is the Nile. And ancient Kemet, they just called it Itru, the river, but also Hapi, which was the spirit inside of the river. That there was a catfish that came and swallowed up that phallus, right? So basically, the idea is that this is the African man, the ideal African man, the picture of kingship, of rulership. That's Asar. So all of the parts are there except for the phallus, right?
The one that can give lineage.
Exactly, exactly. So what Aset did is that she created a tekken or tekenu, which is what they would call an obelisk. If you look at the Washington Monument, or you'll see them all throughout Europe, the ones that these Eurasians stole. That
And in Ghana, if you want to know what an obelisk, I think there's one in Ghana,
yeah,
standing at the Ridge Runabout,
Exactly.
the AU Avenue.
exactly.
That tall thing in the middle
Right.
there is what we call obelisk.
Right, right. Where ancient Kemetic was called a tekken. So what she did is she created a tekken, and that's what I was mentioning at the tomb of Nana Seti, an ancient ancestor, is that she created a tekken. She transformed herself into a kite, and then from that she was able to get pregnant through this immaculate conception, this divine immaculate conception, and she was able to conceive Heru and then give birth to Heru. So this is the very first idea of a virgin birth that you have in the entire world. Now, again, what all of this points to is what you have going on in the sky. And if you look at, these different signs, a lot of people know the signs. You have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. So these are the 12 constellations, which comes into Christianity as the 12 disciples. So
Wow.
the sun, which is Heru, moves through these 12 constellations over the course of a year. And then also you have what's called the precession of the equinoxes. Now the equinoxes, this is when the hours in the day and hours in the night are exactly equal. So when the sun is rising, you'll see it at the equinox, that there's a specific constellation that happens there, just like at the solstices. You have these specific constellations where the sun will rise and that constellation is in the background. And meaning that that's the last thing that you see at night before the sun rises is this constellation in the background. So where we are right now is the age of Pisces, meaning that the sun rises at that equinox where the day and the night are equal, and that's at the time that they now call Easter. So in ancient times they celebrated it because it means that the hours of the day now become longer than the hours of the night, and this is where you're able to grow crops and harvest your food and all these things. And so that's why it's significant. So people now celebrate Easter and they don't even know why they're celebrating it. But even the word Easter comes from the word Oaster, which was, this Eurasian female divinity of, spring coming and all these other types of things. So in ancient times, everybody knew what it was. Nowadays, they just know, well, a white man told me to do it, so I'm doing it. I don't really even understand why.
That is the death of Jesus.
Right, right. But actually, the death is what's happening because it's actually the sun, right? What Ra, Heru. So Heru goes to the lowest point and is dead for 3 days at the winter solstice. And then on the 25th is when it's born. But you don't celebrate that until the hours of the day become longer than the hours of the night, and that's the spring equinox. So again, I don't want people to get lost, but I do want to be comprehensive and cover what we're dealing with. So the equinoxes, right now we're in the constellation where Pisces would be there, Intiyu, the fish in ancient Kemet. So that's where we are now. We see what's going on in the world. But before that age, we had another age, which was the age of the ram, which is called Aries. So the way the precession of the equinoxes go is that it's the opposite of the way it goes in the year, right? So over the course of the year is different from how it goes every 2,155 years. And the cycle, so each one of those chunks of 2,155 years thereabout is one single month in what's called the great year, right? All of those 12 great years put together is around 26,000 years, which means that before you can understand what's going on, you have to see that 26,000 year cycle at least one time, right? But I digress. So now what happened before that in the age of the ram is that the power was at Waset, where the main divinity there was represented by the ram that was called Amen, right? So at the end of everyone's prayers, they're saying Amen, Amen, Amen. But they don't know what they're actually calling on is the ancient divinity Amen, who was the major divinity at that age. And what was going on is that the major power in the world, military power, economic power, political power, so forth and so on, was centered at Waset, whose major divinity was the ram. When we go into the age of Pisces, this is where the major power in the world coming out of the Catholic Church, Vatican, Christianity, Constantine, all of these, that their symbol is represented by a fish, right? So what's going on in the world actually parallels what's going on in the sky. This idea of as above, so below. Now, before the age of the ram, you had the age of the bull, which they call Taurus, which was Hapu, which is the Apis bull of ancient Kemet. So at that point in time, the major power centers were at places where both Ptah and Asar were venerated, and they were represented by, again, this bull. So again, what you have is, and that's Iunu, what they call Heliopolis, majorly as a place of Asar, also Abju, Jedu, all of these different places. But the major power centers were there. And the capital of Kemet before it moved to Waset, it was in a place called Min Nefer. If you know that there's a place in the U.S. called Memphis, that term Memphis is actually derived from the term Min Nefer. Min being an establishment, and Nefer meaning beautiful, a beautiful establishment. And that was the major center of power, political power, and so forth and so on, where Ilnu is just, really in viewing distance of where Min Nefer is located. You can actually see it from the Great Pyramids. So the power is centered in the places where they have divinities represented by the bull, and that's what's going on in the sky. Before that, you have the age of Gemini, right? So this is talking about twins. And at that point in time in Kemet, this is where you had upper and lower Kemet that hadn't yet been united into one land. So again, what you see is that what's going on the ground is a parallel of what's going on in the sky. And, we can go through all of these different ones. Now, to take it back to, you were talking about, or we were discussing, the 16 crucified saviors before Christ. This is Kersey Graves' book in the 1870s.
What was the name? Kersey?
No, Kersey. No, this isn't. I got a name.
Oh, okay.
Kersey Graves. Kersey Graves, and it's the world's 16 crucified saviors. And he actually gives quite a lot more, but I'll go through that. And then he also gives a list of different parallels, but we'll come back to that. So rival claims of the saviors. He goes into actually more than 16. So he has Krishna of Hindustan with all of these different attributes in terms of virgin birth, so forth and so on. And I'll just list them.
I'll be happy if you take them one by one.
I'll take them one by
digest
one.
A bit details for us.
Right. So Krishna of Hindustan, Buddha Sakya of India, Salivahana of Bermuda, Zulius, Zule, also Osiris or Horus of Egypt, Odin of the Scandinavians, Kriti of Chaldea, Zoroaster and Mithra of Persia, Baal and Taut, the only begotten son of Phoenicia, Indra of Tibet, Bali of Afghanistan, Jao of Nepal, Witoba of the Bilingonosi, Tammuz of Syria, Attis of Phrygia, Hanoliosris of Thrace, Zoar of Bonzes, Adad of Assyria. So we're already past 16. So he's given the first 16.
So pause there for me. So listeners and viewers out there, these are names of supposed crucified saviors.
Right.
So why is it that we only know of Jesus? That means that Jesus must have been maybe the true one and the most powerful one.
No, it's actually because Constantine made that decision at the Council of Nicaea, right? So at that council, they had this saying, in hoc signo vinces, where they took this cross and across it, he said he had this dream and he saw this, cross. And in it said, in hoc signo vinces, that in this symbol I will conquer. So it was just an idea where they were coming together, and some people were saying, oh, you know what? Let's say that Jesus was a real person. You had other people were saying, no, that's Zoroastrians. They were saying, no, let's say it was just a spirit. You had other people, Arians, who were saying other things. So all of them were coming together, and they were going to decide at that point in time at the Council of Nicaea what would be the canon, right? The Christian canon. But the idea behind it was that this is a tool of conquering, in hoc signo vinces. And there's actually in East Legon, there's a seminary, and they have that across the top, in hoc signo vinces. And I wonder if Ghanaians understand that they are the ones who are being conquered. It says, in this symbol I will conquer, that we are the ones who he's talking about, he will conquer, with the symbol. But I'll continue down. Devatat of Siam, Bedru of Japan, Jesus or Eros of the Druids, Thor, son of Odin of the Gauls, Cadmus of Greece, Hil and Feta of the Mandites, Gentaut or Quetzalcoatl of Mexico, universal monarch of the Sibyls, Isik of the island of Formosa, a divine teacher of Plato, Holy One of Chaka, Fohi and Tien of China, Adonis, son of Virgin Io in Greece.
These are all crucified
Yeah.
messiahs or
Yes.
saviors.
Yes.
Okay, can you come to the first one? Let's see how many we can do. How they wrote about their crucifixion and all of those. Is there anything that you can give us? For
Yeah.
example, when you take Mitra, what is the story about him?
So Mithra, you also have this birth date of December 25th. You also have this born of a virgin. So you find all of these different parallels. Same thing, Krishna. Same thing of one I just mentioned, Greece, Adonis. Same thing as Dionysus of Greece. So when they talk about changing water to wine, so basically this idea of Jesus is just a portmanteau. It's like let's mix all of these different stories together in order to make this one, story. And this is the one that they're going to use to conquer others. And there's a good documentary that I'll point people to if they are interested in learning more. It's called Zeitgeist. And in it goes into all of these different parallels that you'll find. Now, in terms of the parallels, I want to come back. This is again Kersey Graves, the World's 16 Crucified Saviors, where he actually gives a list of these biblical parallels. And
I would love to hear that.
right. So the first one, there are many cases of the miraculous birth of God's reported history before the case of Jesus Christ. Also, many other cases of God's being born of virgin mothers. That's the ones that we're talking about. Many of these reputedly were born on 25th of December because everybody's looking at the exact same sky. So you can see that the sun goes to the lowest point, and then on 25th, then it rises up. The advent into the world like that of Jesus Christ is in many cases claimed to have been foretold by inspired prophets, usually 3, because those are the 3 stars that point to where the sun is going to rise at that point in time. Stars figured at the birth of several of them, as in the case of Christ. Also, angels, shepherds, or magi, or wise men, 3 of them. Many of them, like Christ, were claimed to be of royal or princely descent. Their lives, like his, were also threatened in infancy by the ruler of the country, Herod, so forth and so on. Several of them, like him, gave early proof of divinity, and like him, retired from the world and fasted. So this is talking about the characteristics of all the different ones that I've mentioned before. Also, like him, declared, "My kingdom is not of this world." Some of them preached a spiritual religion too, like his, and were anointed with oil like him. Many of them, like him, were crucified for the sins of the world. After 3 days interment, they rose from the dead. Also, finally, like him, are reported as ascending back to heaven. Same violent convulsions of nature at the crucifixion of several are reported. They were nearly all called Savior, Son of God, Messiah, Redeemer, Lord, Way, Truth, Light, so forth and so on. Each one was the second member of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And the original Trinity was Asar, that's the Father, Aset, that was the Mother, and then Heru, which was the Son. But when you see the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, is you see an adaptation. So Catholicism, because they took it straight from Kemet, they kept the mother's role in there, which was Aset. When Eurasians decided that they wanted to make it more accommodating to their worldview is man is good, woman is bad, right? So that's where you see in the Protestant ones, they say, let's take out the woman and make it Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So you don't have any woman in there. Now tell me, how can you be a creator or create life or do anything and you're just a man?
We'll come to that, but let me tell people who want to also get some property to buy. If you want to buy a land, there's a hot cake going on here. So we'll come right back to talk about how the European concept kind of denigrate women. Why everything woman is at the bottom, woman is the cause of our problem. In the Adam and Eve story, you see how the woman has been denigrated, the originator of evil and all of that. So we are coming right back to for you to explain to us why it is so.
Right.
Okay, so if you have land to buy in a place like Botiano, and we have an uncompleted school building going for 7,600 Ghana cedis. Kasua of this morning, you're like, this is too deep. Yes, but if you go there, if you want videos of what he's talking about, you can get it. Even what he's talking about right now, you are going to get the video there right now as I'm talking to you. And anything black that you want to you want to know, you can also do that. That is the Black's own social media platform that you can get. And for your children, you can also get Abibi Fahudie Adisunyabia right there for your children, no matter where they are in the world. You can bring them to that homeschool, special homeschool. We'll talk about that before Doc leave the studio here. So please go to abibitumi.com right now. The spelling is abibitumi.com. Go there right now and sign up. Follow Dr. Obadele Kambon there. I think that is the only social media platform that you can actually follow and have interaction with Dr. Obadele Kambon on a daily basis over there. So let's go there. If you really want to know more about yourself as a black person and you've not signed up on abibitumi.com, then you are missing out. I'm there, and you need to be there. So, Doc, let's continue.
And really quick, I got a message on BB to me from Amani Amos, who says all of Africa needs to hear this. This Jesus worship is really holding Africans back, and we definitely agree with that, which is why we need to learn more. And I wanted to go a little bit. You asked specifically about Mithra and Persia, and I was able to pull that up. So it's, again, in Kersey Graves, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. So this Persian god was slain upon the cross to make atonement for mankind and to take away the sins of the world. He was reputedly born on the 25th day of December and crucified on a tree. It is a remarkable circumstance that both speak of his being slain. So these are Christian writers who speak about him being slain, but they omit the manner in which he was put to death, which was by crucifixion, because they saw the parallel and they didn't want to have to deal with that. In the same policy has been pursued with respect to other crucified gods of the pagans, as I have shown elsewhere. So again, it goes into this Devtad of Siam, Apollonius of Tyana, Cappadocia, in Cappadocia. So all of these, have that. So basically, if you're interested in more, you can look up that book, because it goes in depth into each one of these crucified saviors and exactly what the parallels are. And then once you come to that, then you can actually go and follow up on it and find out, is that actually true? Let me go and read those original stories, and then I'll find out. But again, the reason why those are all the same story, no matter where you are, is because everybody's looking at the same sun, and everybody can see what the sun is doing every year. Everybody's looking at Heru up in the sky and seeing what happens. So they're all talking about 12 disciples, because everybody can see these same 12 constellations. So no matter where you are on the earth, you can see it, and then you come up with stories to explain it to children. So as children, they will just learn it as a story, but once they grow up, then they'll actually understand, this is helping me understand all of creation. This is helping me understand the cosmos, right? Now, I also wanted to come into, we can come back to these other crucified saviors, but I also wanted to give you other cases and instances of plagiarism. And this is the instruction of Amenemope, and I think we've discussed this here on the program, before. But you have a comparison of text. So Proverbs 22, 17 through 18, incline thy ear and hear the words of the wise. In Amenemope, it says, give thine ear and hear what I say. For the Bible one, it says, apply thine heart to my doctrine. In the Kemetic one, which predates it, says, apply thine heart to apprehend. For the Bible one, it says, for it is pleasant if thou keep them in thy belly. In the Kemetic one, it says, for it is good for thee to place them in thine heart. For the Kemetic one, which came first, it says, that they may be established together upon thy lips. For the plagiarized one, it says, let them rest in the casket of thy belly, and they may act as the peg upon thy tongue. So the original one says lips, So the original one says tongue, and the Bible one says lips. Again, Proverbs 22, rob not the poor, for he is poor, neither oppress or crush the lowly in thy gate. And Amenemope, the original one says, beware of robbing the poor and oppressing the afflicted. Proverbs, it says, do not befriend the man of anger. Amenemope, the original one says, associate not with a passionate man. For the Proverbs, it says, nor go with a wrathful man, lest thou learn his ways and take a snare for thy soul. For the original, it says, nor approach him for conversation, leap not to cleave to such a one, that terror carry thee not away. We go to Proverbs 22.
Hi, I'm in the UK listening to X Live Africa.
No problem, we got to get a shout out. Again, Proverbs 22, it says, you see a man quicken his work, before the kings he will stand, before cravens he will not stand. For Amenemope, the original one says, a scribe who is skillful in his business findeth worthy to be a courtier, meaning someone who is in front of kings in the court. Proverbs 23, 1, it says, when thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before them, and put a knife to thy throat. If thou be a man given to appetite, be not desirous of his dainties, for they are breads of falsehood. For Amenemope, the original one, says, eat not bread in the presence of a ruler, and lunge not forward with thy mouth before a governor. When thou art replenished with that to which thou hast no right, it is only a delight to thy spittle. Look upon the dish that is before thee, and let that alone supply thy need. And you find a similar one all the way going back to Ptah-hotep, which is the oldest book to survive out of Kemet. Proverbs 23, 4 through 5, it says, toil not to become rich. Amenemope, the original, it says, toil not after riches. For Proverbs, it says, and cease from dishonest gain. The original, Amenemope, it says, if thy stolen goods are brought to thee, they remain not over the night with thee. For Proverbs, it says, for wealth maketh to itself wings, like an eagle that flieth heavenwards. For the original, it says, they have made themselves wings like geese, and they have flown into the heavens, right? Very clear plagiarism. For Proverbs 23, 9, it says, speak not in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the wisdom in thy words. For the original one, Amenemope, it says, empty not thine inmost soul to everyone, nor spoil thereby thine influence.
Hold on, Doc. The original ones are in this, what we call archaic English. Thou. So when you mention it, if you can do us a good by bringing it to the normal English so that our listeners can digest as well.
No problem, no problem. I think they may be used to that archaic English because they're already reading the Bible. But
no, these days, the charismatic...
They're using the updated one?
Yes.
No problem.
Yes.
No problem. So
instead of duet, they say
do, right? No problem. So Amenemope, it says, remove not the landmark from the bounds of the field. Basically, it's saying, don't take up someone's pillar.
Oh, okay.
So remove not the landmark from the bounds of the field, and violate not the widow's boundary.
Like for example, if you live in a farm area before,
right,
you understand that every farm, the farm have boundaries.
Yeah,
in Tome or a share. And sometimes what happens is that somebody who is greedy can go into the farm and be shifting the boundaries between his farm and your farmland. And by the time you realize your farmland becomes so small, he has eaten into you by just shifting the post or the pillar that divide your farmland and his. And that is what it was talking about. Okay.
Right. So the original was saying because people would do that to someone who's a widow who doesn't have someone to protect them. So it says, remove not the landmark from the bounds of the field and violate not the widow's boundary. Right. Because this is somebody who could be a pushover. There's no husband there. You could just whatever. So the Proverbs takes the same thing. It says, remove not the widow's landmark and enter not into the field of the fatherless. Right. From Amenemope, it says, give thine ears, basically give your ears, hear the words that are said, give thine heart to interpret them, meaning give your heart to understand and interpret them. The Proverbs says, apply thine heart, give your heart unto instruction, and thine ears, your ears to the words of knowledge. So again, these are countless, all of the ones that they just plagiarize wholesale. It would also interest people to know that this idea, the story of the flood story, is actually coming from the original story, which is the story of the destruction of mankind.
You mean the flood of Noah?
Yeah, exactly. And also the idea of parting of waters, right? So you'll see this in the so-called Exodus, that original story, you can find it in Kemet, and it's the Golden Lotus story. And in the story, there's Zazamank, who is a noted magician, And what he's able to do for Seneferu is tell him that, okay, we see that you're sullen, you're low, you're depressed. What you should do is take all of these maidens and have them row, out on this lake for you. When you see that, your heart will be gladdened, and then everything will go well for you. So the ruler Seneferu says, "Oh yes, this is a great idea." So he actually does it. So they're on the royal boat with the maidens, and all of a sudden, the one who's in the lead stops rowing and says, "What's wrong?" She had a golden lotus, in her hair, and it fell out and it goes to the bottom of the lake. So she's, sullen. And Seneferu is saying, "Oh, why did you stop? Because, I was really enjoying looking at this wonderful sight." She says, "Oh, my golden lotus has sunk to the bottom of the lake." So now we have a major problem. So he's like, "Don't worry, I'll get you another one." She says, "No, I want my own." So what does he do? He calls Zazamank. So what Zazamank does is that, and actually, let me see if I can read this out for you.
Tune on to X-Live.
Then Zazamank stood at the stern of the royal boat and began to chant great spells and words of power. And presently he held out his wand over the water, and the lake parted as if a piece had been cut out of it with a great sword. The lake here was 20 feet deep, and the piece of water that the magician moved rose up and set itself upon the surface of the lake, so that there was a cliff of water on that side 40 feet high. Now the royal boat slid gently into the great cleft in the lake until it rested on the bottom. On the side towards the 40-foot cliff of water, there was a great open space where the bottom of the lake lay uncovered, as firm and dry as the land itself. And there, just below the stern of the royal boat, lay the golden lotus. With a cry of joy, the maiden who had lost it sprang over the side onto firm ground, picked it up, and set it once more in her hair. Then she climbed swiftly back into the royal boat and took the steering oar into her hands once more. Zazma lowered his rod, it slid back.
What is golden lotus?
A lotus is a type of flower, so this is basically like an ornament that she had in her hair made out of gold.
Okay, so that is how this Exodus, people passing through
Right.
the sea.
This idea of parting water, they plagiarized that whole idea from this original story. So when you're talking about the time of Seneferu, you're talking about what they mention as the fourth dynasty, Old Kingdom. So we're going over 4,000 years, with this story. So it's before there's anything called a Israel, anything called a Jew, anything called any of those things, that this is where the story originally came from. But they just decided to pick and take pieces, so forth and so on. Right. So I hope that one is clear as well. So another thing that we can also bring up is the plagiarism of, a lot of people may have heard of the 10 Commandments, that one is also plagiarized wholesale from the 42.
Before we go on to the 10 Commandments, let me announce that if you want to call and contribute or ask Doc any question this morning, you can call on 024-7785-986. If you are not outside of Ghana, then call the direct number. But if you're outside of Ghana and even you can call, you have enough credit to call the direct number, so that you don't get the worries on WhatsApp. But if you can and you want to call on WhatsApp, the same number on WhatsApp, you can call. The number once again is 024-7785-986. 024-7785-986. You can call and put your questions or comments or recommendation, whatever, across, and Doc is here. He will address them for us. So you want to also say that the 10 Commandments was also taken from the Egyptians' ancient writings.
Right. Now, it's very important that I introduce a term. So the people themselves didn't call themselves Egyptians, right? That's a modern day term coming from the Greek Aegyptos, which is a corruption of Huk Ka Ptah, which is the enclosure or temple of the soul of Ptah. And the Ka, they usually translate that as soul. Now, Huk Ka Ptah comes into Egyptos, which now comes to us as Egypt, but the people themselves didn't call themselves that. They call themselves Kemetic, and the root of that is the word Kem, which translates to black. When you say Kemetic, it simply means black people, and they called their land Kemet, which we could translate as nation or land of black people. So it's very important. That's the reason why we hear people say Egyptians and ancient Egyptians and so forth. It's very important to learn the language, because once you learn that, then you'll know that the people themselves didn't call themselves Egyptians, which is basically meaningless to us. what did they actually call themselves? They called themselves black people, and they depicted themselves as such as well. So we come to the 42 declarations of Ma'at, and I want to give a little context. The idea of Judgment Day is also plagiarized from ancient Kemet. You can find it going back all the way
Wow.
to the pyramid text. And the idea is that when you pass on, then your heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. And when it's being weighed, you have to be able to say all 42 of these before it would be pronounced to be lighter than the feather of Ma'at. And then you would be said to be Ma'at Kheru, which is true of voice. So I'll go through the 42 and you'll be able to see how it parallels the so-called 10 Commandments, because these whites said we can't do all 42. They just don't have the character for it. So they say, all right, let's just pick 10 and roll with that. But the 42, the first is, I have not done iniquity. 2, I have not robbed with violence. 3, I have not stolen. 4, I have done no murder. I have done no harm. 5, I have not defrauded offerings. 6, I have not diminished obligations. 7, I have not plundered the Neteru, which is the divinities. 8, I have not spoken lies. 9, I have not uttered evil words. 10, I have not caused pain. 11, I have not committed fornication. 12, I have not caused shedding of tears. 13, I have not dealt deceitfully. 14, I have not transgressed. 15, I have not acted guilefully. 16, I have not laid waste the plowed land. 17, I have not been an eavesdropper. 18, I have not set my lips in motion against any man. 19, I have not been angry and wrathful except for a just cause. 20, I have not defiled the wife of any man. 21, I have not been a man of anger. 22, I have not polluted myself. 23, I have not caused terror. 24, I have not burned with rage. 25, I have not stopped my ears against the word of right and truth. That's Ma'at. 26, I have not worked grief. 27, I have not acted with insolence. 28, I have not stirred up strife. 29, I have not judged hastily. I continue. 30, I have not sought for distinctions. 31, I have not multiplied words exceedingly. I'll take that again. 30, I have not sought for distinctions. 31, I have not multiplied words exceedingly. 32.
So in our real life, where would this apply? I've not multiplied is it numbers or words?
Words exceedingly.
Words. Oh, okay.
So there's a proverb in Tree. They say, "Usum in contempo fidia na wuyi kasabre,"
Casabre.
which is to say, if you set up a trap to catch lies, then what you end up pulling out of it is ceaseless talking, right? Literally talking until tired.
When you say one lie, you have to say another lie to cover yourself.
Exactly. So that's the whole idea. So once you are multiplying words exceedingly, it's another way of saying that you are basically telling lies. Asempa tia. So asempa translates literally to good words, but it's also when you say ampa, it's a way to say something is true. 32, I have not done neither harm nor ill. 33, I have not cursed the king in the sense of a violation of laws. 34, I have not fouled the water. 35, I have not spoken scornfully. 36, I have never cursed the Neteru. 39, I have not stolen. 38, I have not defrauded the offerings of the Neteru. 39, I have not plundered the offerings of the blessed dead. 40, I have not filched the food of the infant. 41, I have not sinned against the netter of my native town. 42, I have not slaughtered with evil intent the cattle of the Neteru. So those are the 42. And
these are 42 laws of moral laws
Yeah.
for mankind.
Exactly.
The first ever for mankind.
Exactly. So the plagiarized version, they decided we can't do all 42. Let's select 10.
And when you say they, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about pale white Eurasian enemies who now, we call them Roman Catholics, so forth and so on. And before that, they're getting it from these fake Jews. Now, another point to bring up, there's a Egyptologist called Jan Assmann. And even long before him, you have Josephus Flavius, who identifies the Hyksos with the Exodus. Now, the Hyksos are a group of these pale white Eurasians who came into Kemet, the land of black people, and they brought ruin and destruction to Kemet. Eventually, they were expelled from Kemet by a ruler named Ya-Mos, Ya being the divinity of the moon, and Mos saying that this is one who was born of that moon divinity. Now, the Yah is the same Yah that you have in Yahweh and Yah this, Yah that, all these so-called Hebrew things. Now, he was able to expel them. They came as invaders. They brought death and destruction. Then he eventually was able to expel them from Kemet, and this is what comes to us in modern times as that's the Exodus. So this is the point in time where they actually came across these original 42, and they decided we can only take 10. This is where they came across the story at the time when they were invading into Kemet, where they would get a story like parting of waters, the ideas of Judgment Day, the ideas of Holy Trinity, even the name Yah itself, which was, the name of the ruler at the time that they were kicked out, that they were expelled. And I actually want to do a presentation at African Studies this semester on the same topic. What was Israel in relation to black people? Because you go around, you see billboards saying, go to the Holy Land in Israel. I remember seeing when I was
even governments give people money to go
Right.
to Israel.
Right.
And sometimes I think about it from this perspective that how can a land where it's relatively peaceful, where you hardly hear bombing of other innocent people like Ghana, go to a country where every single day is killing their nearby country. The Israelis are bombing, killing Palestinians every single day.
Right.
They are destroying water pipelines so that the Palestinians will not get water to drink, all of that. And we give money to people to go to this country to pray to God. And I think about it, I'm like, how can God listen to our prayer faster in a country where they are killing more people than everywhere?
It's a very good question that shows that your brain actually works. But in the case of Christian sanity, the whole crux of it is that your brain stops working. You're supposed to just believe anything that these pale white Eurasians tell you.
God is good.
That's what they tell us. So, let's continue. So again, those are the divine laws of Ma'at. Now we come here to the so-called commandments, the plagiarized ones. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 5, honor thy father and thy mother. 6, thou shalt not kill. 7, thou shalt not commit adultery. 8, thou shalt not steal. 9, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And then 10, thou shalt not covet. So they said, all right, out of those 42, we can probably handle some of these. So let's just take it like that. But this is the problem, when we're dealing with this type of plagiarism.
The defense I hear is that actually all the 42 is kind of inside the 10. How true is that?
No, not quite. So there's a proverb that says it's a silly daughter who tries to teach her mother how to bear children. The 10 comes after the 42.
No. Say that again.
It's a silly daughter who tries to teach her mother how to bear children.
A silly doctor
Who
who
tries
tried
to
to
teach her
teach
mother.
her mother how to bear children.
Right. So it is anachronistic, meaning it's out of order, out of sequence to say that 42 is in the 10, because the 42 predated the 10, and they selected out of the 42 the only 10 that they decided that they were able to actually do. But we see, as you just mentioned, in Israel, they're not actually doing those. They're killing, murdering, raping, and doing all those types of things. If you listen to the story of the Palestinians there, you'll actually see what's going on. But I don't have too much sympathy for the Palestinians, because if I see one type of pale white Eurasian fighting against another pale white Eurasian, it would be like me crying over a leopard and a lion fighting when both of them want to make me dinner. You understand? So, again, it helps us to put this in perspective in terms of who are we as African people, and rather than rooting on the side of one Eurasian against another Eurasian, this is what we'll look at. Now, there's another story called The Destruction of Mankind, and this is where you go to the flood story. And in that story, there's an idea that people were plotting against Ra, Ra being, the indigenous word for what we would now say today in English as the sun. And they were laughing at Ra, saying that Ra had gotten old and so forth and so on. So Ra took counsel with all of the other Neteru, the other divinities, and said, what should I do about this? They're plotting against me. And they made the decision collectively that, you should wipe out mankind and basically just start over. And after much deliberation, it was decided that should be done. And with that, Sekhmet, which is, it literally translates to a female power, that she took the form of a lion and then went down to earth and started just slaughtering all these people. And there was rivers of blood to the point that it became a flood, right? But the main point where you see this flood parallel is when they try to uh, basically get Sekhmet to stop, because Ra sees what's going on with all the people, that they're all dying. This is his own progeny, and he decides he wants to put an end to it. But they're like, Sekhmet is in her rage. We can't stop her. What can we do about it? So they take the idea of, let's get all of this beer, right, and flood the world with beer and mix it with red ochre, so it looks like blood, because Sekhmet is just, feasting on the blood as a lion of all of these people who are being slaughtered. So she'll see this beer mixed with red ochre, she'll think it's blood, she'll drink it, she'll become intoxicated, and then that will be the end of it. And that's what they do. So she sees this beer mixed with red ochre, she drinks it in, she becomes intoxicated, she forgets her mission to go and kill all the people, and that's how the people are saved after this flood of beer, right? And this is the first idea, this first story of a flood story leading to the destruction of mankind, and that's the context. So you find flood stories all throughout, but this is where the original flood story is coming from. You can actually read this in translation. It's been translated numerous times into various languages of the world. Unfortunately, we don't find it translated into African languages, but we get Kumkum Baja translated into African languages. So I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, some more.
So all of this is to say that these different ideas, these different stories, they predate anything called Christianity, and you can find all of these parallels. But unfortunately, we don't get a chance to learn of them because we're taught just believe in this white popsicle, the imaginary white boy on a stick, right? That they are calling Jesus. Or if we're not taught that, then we're taught to pray to a rock in the desert 5 times a day, right? And then we say, oh, we're against idol worship, but 5 times a day you're praying to a rock in the desert somewhere. There's some type of thing that's going on in people's head that they're not getting what's going on here.
Yeah, people also say that then if you also pour libation onto the ground, call names of ancestors and all of that, you are also in a way worshipping idols. What do you say to that?
Well, this is where you can actually look up libation, and there's a book called Libation in African Heritage, which is by Kemetic Nehesi. He's based out of the UK, and in it he actually documents the history of libation, but also you find this idea that libation is mentioned many times in the Bible. So what you can actually do is, if anyone has a Bible, me myself, I don't have a Bible, but there are 35 instances.
Wait, why don't you have a Bible?
Because I'm intelligent.
Oh.
And I want my brain cells to be preserved.
Hold on.
Yes.
What do you mean if you say you don't own a Bible because you're intelligent? What do you mean?
Yes, I mean that the various people who I see who have Bibles and who read Bibles, it appears that the brain cell count goes down every single time that they pick it up. You understand? So in order to preserve my brain cells, I make sure that I go to the original sources. I go to the original text that the Bible is plagiarized from, rather than depending on, that.
You've said this before. We were at a meeting and you said that the last thing you do is to quote the Bible to support your presentation or your argument. And I asked why, and you said that because you can read the books or the text from which the Bible was copied from.
Exactly.
Anyway, let's move on.
Right. So just and people who are online right now, and those who like Bibles or have Bibles, libation in the Bible, 35 instances. Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he had spoken to him, a pillar of stone, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil, so forth and so on. Nay, even my life is to be poured as a libation upon the sacrificial offering of your faith. So all of this libation in the Bible. So, if you are actually, and this is the thing, people say, oh, I'll just go by my Bible. This is what Dr. Nana Khalid Muhammad would say. He say, I just go by my Bible. He said, that's the problem. You're going by it. You don't actually read it. So even if you're supposed to be Christian, if you're saying, oh, libation is bad, it means you haven't even read the thing, right? Because it's all throughout the Bible, 35 times. So that's something to think about as well. But I think what we can come to is that a lot of this information is out there. and anyone can read it. Anybody can not only read it but research it and verify it. You can go and read the original text on Heru. You can go and read the original text of Dionysius, and then you can make your own judgment. But the problem is that those who tell you just believe this, they're making sure that you don't have access to any knowledge whatsoever. They're making sure that you just keep coming every Sunday and filling up their pockets so that they can build bigger churches and have bigger cars and have bigger houses and have bigger planes and whatever.
Bigger cathedrals.
Bigger cathedrals, national cathedrals, all these types of things. So if you know that your faith is dependent on ignorance, it's dependent on falsehood, it's dependent on plagiarism, then you have to actually start to question, what exactly am I doing and why am I doing it? Am I doing it because it's something that's right, or am I doing it because I'm either a dupee or a duper, meaning I'm either someone who's been duped by someone, defrauded by someone, or I've taken the position of being the duper. So if I look at all these pastors throughout Ghana, that they should be brought up on charges of Sakawa, 419, fraud, you understand?
Why?
Exactly, because when you are giving them a plagiarized story and you're not letting them know that all of this is, 50% lies, 50% plagiarism, then what are you doing but perpetuating it? So there's a quote by the late Dr. Lerone Bennett. He says, in a system of oppression, an educator is either a liberator or an oppressor himself, right? And this is to say, here we are in the situation that you have a choice. You can either be a liberator and assist people to learn all these things that have been kept from them, or you yourself can be an oppressor and say, I don't care, just give me your 10% every Sunday. You understand?
Next, we are going to talk about Abibi Fahundi Edisiambia, where, and so this is how I introduce that to my listeners and viewers out there. That Dr. Obadele Kambon, as you were hearing his voice here, is a lecturer and a research fellow at the University of Ghana African Institute of African Studies. And the shocker is that his children are not in classroom. How can somebody who is teaching people in a classroom, his children are schooling at home? So that is one thing that we'll be talk every time that he comes. We try to talk about it, and also and today I know that we have some new listeners on, so that you can have the opportunity to also know why Dr. Obadele Kambon is teaching his children at home, and other people have sent their children to him at his house at North Legon to be taught in that house. And that today we want you to take us through what is the ordinary day activity of these children in that Bifahundi Adisiambia. Are they in a row? Do they sit like with the normal classroom, or do they sit round table? All of that you're going to explain to us. But for the sake of our new listeners, and please, if you are listening right now and you find this interesting, please share the listening link with somebody, or just WhatsApp somebody to be on. We have some few minutes to go, but what we're about to talk about is so important that you don't have to miss. For the sake of new listeners for today, Doc, I will also want you to say something you said before, how you came to Ghana with your mom and all of that. Then let's go to Abibi Fahundi Adisiambia.
All right. So just really quick, so you put on me, let me share some information. So my mother first came to Ghana in 1972, which was about 7 years before I was born. And she started training as an Okomfo. Now, she has a PhD in psychology from Duke University.
Wow.
Now, she realized that the way psychology is done is in a very compartmentalized way, in the sense that you just come in, they say, all right, I'm going to heal you as an individual and then send you back. Whereas in African healing systems, if you come to a traditional healer, diviner, spirit medium, one of the first things I'll ask you is what's going on in your household? What's the relationship with your wife? What's the relationship with your children, with your parents, so forth and so on? Because the idea, like I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have an ulcer, right? Now, if you have an ulcer, I could just prescribe you some medicine and send you home. Who cares? but you may find out, okay, this man has an ulcer because his wife isn't cooking for him, and his wife isn't cooking for him, and therefore,
He's been eating from the street.
he's been eating from the streets or whatever, and not eating on time, all these types of things. But if you don't even ask that, how would you find out that that's actually the source of the ulcer? You just prescribe something to him and send him home, and that's what's usually done in the Eurasian context. In the African context, there's a proverb in Yoruba which translates to "Aki bonju oniti andifafun," which translates to "We're not wiser than the one who we're doing the divination for." And that means that you yourself know more about your life than anyone will know. So you're the one who would know, all right, what's troubling you, what's hassling you, all those types of things. So all of that would be what would be found out before now you bring the wife in. And then the wife says, oh, I'm doing this because he hasn't been doing such and such and such. And then you get to the root of the issue. If not, all you do is cover up the symptoms rather than actually address the cause. So if you just cover up the symptoms, then the cause is still there. It means that this malady, this affliction, which isn't only physiological, it's social, right? It's between people in the community. Then it has other effects on the community because you're not able to, you have this ulcer, you're not able to go to the farm or go hunting or do other things, and it has ripple effects that bring out isfet, this chaos in the community. So all of these are to say that that's basically why she started looking at African spiritual systems, because she realized that they're more complete than these Eurasian spiritual systems that are psychological systems that try to deal with the individual, as cut off from everybody else, cut off from society. I'm just going to sit down, talk to you. Now you're going to be better. I'll send you off. Give me my money. Right.
So this is somebody who is a psychologist, decided to come and learn how to be a kung fu.
Right.
Okay.
And this is actually very common in the U.S. So a lot of you have Association of Black Psychologists, and all of the ones who I grew up knowing, you have Dr. Wade Nobles, also Nana Kweku Bekun Dikain. You had the late Nana Asa Hilliard, who was also called Nana Bafua Mankwetia. So all of these...
All of them in the U.S.?
Yeah, all of these are in the U.S., and all of them are noted psychologists. If you look up their names, they have lectures, they have books, they have all types of information out there that they ended up getting initiated or installed into these various African spiritual systems. Some into multiple, so some are initiated into the Akan spiritual system. Some are also initiated into Yoruba spiritual system. Some are also initiated into that of the Wolof, people. So like Dr. Charles Finch has multiple initiations. So all of these people who are PhD holders, and this is the difference. So here, the idea is if you go to school, you have to be an imitation white person. There, that's not the idea. It's that there you can see all these limitations that come with this white system that you've grown up in, and then you can actually try to supplement it or complement it or go beyond it by looking into African spiritual systems. So she brought me here in 98 as she was continuing her training, came back in 99. I decided to do a year of study abroad from 2000 2001, where I was learning Chi because I was her Ochiame, she was the Okomfo. I was her Ochiame. I said, how can I be an Ochiame unless I actually learn Chi, this language? And then I repatriated in 2008, did my PhD from 2009 to 2012. I won the Vice Chancellor's Award for the best PhD thesis in that year. Then 2016, I won the Provost Award for the best publication in the humanities on an article about language learning. So all these different things. Now, to come back to the homeschool piece.
That majority of parents and children pride themselves of going to any of the best, so-called best schools around us. And you, a whole doctor, a lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon. Sometimes people can even say, me co school or Kenya University of Legon. Anyway, that's a joke. You are having your children...
Kumasi
Legon. You are having your children schooled at home. Why would you do that?
A lot of it is very...
What are you hiding from us?
Right. We actually make it very public, so you'll see dozens and dozens of videos that show what go on in the school. Me teaching my daughter Ama in Chi, teaching her in Yoruba, teaching her in Wolof, teaching her Medunecha, all these.
How many languages can you speak?
I count 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
Right, but okay. I can greet and do other things in a good 30 or 40. but I
Wow.
don't count those other ones. But yeah, so this is the thing. Being at Legon even tells me the need for a different type of system, an actual education system, because what we have here in Ghana is not education. It's miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education. As I've gone through all this information this morning, I doubt our listening audience would have even heard of all of this information before, right?
Nana Yankee, who used to call on our show from Germany, he's in Germany. Let me say good morning to you, Nana, and your family, your brother, and everyone. He says that I'm really learning a lot.
Very good. Which is wonderful. That's, the whole point. Now, when I teach at the university, I find that a lot of the students don't have any of this information. And it really lets me know exactly that there's miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education, but there isn't an education system here in Ghana yet. And so if I ask them, who is Imhotep, the world's first multi-genius, they'll say, oh, I don't know. Who is that? I say, you don't know Nana Imhotep. How do you not know? But then I'll ask them, do you know who Julius Caesar is? Oh, yes, of course. You understand? Now, what type of person doesn't know anything about the most important human beings on the face of the planet, but then they know everything about just random white folks, right? What type of person does that create? It creates the types of people who would go and build a national cathedral. It creates the type of people who will be corrupt. All the things we complain about, that's the end result of miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education. If I want to run a science experiment, I'm not going to tell you anything about yourself. I'm going to tell you everything about your enemy. What type of person will I produce?
And actually present your enemy as your savior.
Exactly. What type of person would that produce? That produces the same type of person that we complain about all the time. The corrupt ones, the ones who just, their highest goal in life is to go and sweep the floors for someone in the UK. You understand? I remember I was at the airport in Washington, D.C., and there was a guy who was cleaning the windows, and he saw me and my family. My parents were all wearing African clothes. So he decided to strike up a conversation. And he says, oh, me too, I'm from Africa. And I said, where in Africa? He says, Ghana. I said, hey, what you chi? Hey, what you chi? So he was just like amazed. So we start having a conversation. I said,
Oh.
and he's cleaning the windows at the airport in Washington, D.C. And he can't go back, you understand, because they have this view that America, the money grows on trees and the streets are paved with gold. So if you come back to Ghana, you have to come back with flat screen TVs. You have to come back with this. You have to come back with that. But that's not the lifestyle people are living, and they are even too shy to tell the people here that's not how it is. There are all these people who are, if you earn $1,000 a month, right? Or $2,000 a month or whatever it is, your rent will be a good half of that. You understand? Before you have to buy groceries, which will take up another 25%. And that's before, you have to deal with everything, transportation, so forth. So by the end of the month, if you even have $100 to spare, and then your family is here in Ghana saying, send it to me, right? And if you don't send it, then, you're the outcast. So there are some success stories, but then that needs to be balanced out by the actual real stories of what's actually going on there. And I have someone online, this is again Amani Amosu, saying, we are the solution to our own problems, but we keep looking at non-African solutions for African problems. African-centered education is the only way forward. We can't continue with this colonial education that was meant to mentally enslave us. So shout out to Amani Amos, Chizoro, I see you. Also, Brother Kwajo, those who are listening in.
On a BB to me.
Right. So yeah, this is the point. So once we understand this is the case, that you have all these people who are miseducated, why would I send my children through that same system that's creating these broken people? You understand? And the analogy is actually coming from the health industry, and Nana Kweko Opare, says this, and it's actually coming from Dr. Burkett before him, but it's the idea of, here we have the tap, and the tap is open. So this tap is open and the water is overflowing onto the floor. So when it's overflowing onto the floor, we have different options that we can do. One is that we can take a mop and then keep mopping up the floor, or we can turn off the tap. So what we tend to do is we try to take a mop, and we have all these different types of mops, right? So one mop is a chocolate flavored mop, a cherry flavor. We have all these different mops. This one, yellow colored mop, blue colored mop. But what we actually need to do is go to the source and turn off the tap. So what we have is all these broken people who are created by this miseducation system. So no matter how many free SHS schools that we have, if all they're doing is perpetuating miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education, then it really won't be serving us. You understand? So this is what we're getting at. So once we know that this is a problem, then we need to do something about that problem by attacking it from the cause. That's turning off the tap, rather than by the time they get to me, most of them are too far gone. They're complete anti-Africans.
Okay, now let's look at how I want you to create a mental picture to our listeners and viewers. The day-to-day lifestyle of us, of children at ABB,
Right. So we start off in the morning with libation. So we pour libation. So for those of you who are in Christianity, it's just like what's in your Bible, right? We pour libation, but all of this preceded anything that was even called a Bible. So we do that in order to get them into the right frame of mind, to get them into the frame of mind of ma'at, truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, order, balance, propriety, reciprocity, all of these ideas. And they call on the names of those ancestors. So some people think that this popsicle, the imaginary white boy on the stick, what they call Jesus, died for their whatever. But in reality, it's all African ancestors who sacrificed, who made offerings, who died in order for us to be here. Because literally, if your mother and father never met, would you be sitting in front of me right now?
No.
If your grandparents had never met, would you be here?
No.
So in Zulu, they say Muntungu Muntunga Bantu, and we actually discussed this last Friday in the school, which translates to a human is a human being because of other human beings, right? And we can see that very clearly that you wouldn't be a human being if your mother and your father were not there in order to make you even exist. And they too would not exist if if your grandparents weren't there, their parents weren't there, and those wouldn't exist if your grandparents. So all of this thing of, oh, let me pray to this imaginary white boy whose story is plagiarized from the story of Heru, it makes no sense, because the ones who are actually living for you, the ones who are actually sacrificing for you, the ones who are actually dying for you to even exist are these ancestors. You understand? So we go into that. So on Friday, for example, we went into Foundations of African Thought. Now that's a course that I teach at the university level, and it's so many accolades. You can actually look online. Some of my students have done interviews about how it just changed their life. Because, for example, I have a student who took philosophy at University of Ghana, and he came to my class thinking, oh, I did philosophy, whatever, and we're talking about creation stories. So then we ask him, well, what's your creation story? He doesn't know. He's Ghanaian. He's African, never left Africa, but he doesn't know his own creation story. And then he thought about it, and he got very quiet after that class. And then he said that he went and asked his other mates, who all of them had done philosophy, do you know the creation story of your people? Now these are Akans, Dagaba, you name it, all of them are there.
The
Gaz and Ko, everybody. And none of them know the creation story of their own people. All of them have a creation story, but none of them know the creation story of their own people. And the only thing that they knew was Adam and Eve and a rib and a this and a that, all this ridiculousness, right? So what it really told him is exactly the reason why we need African education.
And you're saying that the African Thoughts course, you teach it at the university level.
Yeah, I teach that at the university level, but we've broken it down.
What is the oldest student in your house?
Right now in our school, the oldest child is 12.
And how are the 12 years and down, those who are down 10, 9, 7, are able to grasp what you're teaching the university student?
Right. And this is very good. And the reason why I thought it was even because of the university students, because they would almost be mad. Some of them actually were mad. They said, why did I have to wait to become 22, 23 years old before I learned this information? They said it would be good if I even learned this from childhood. So from this, basically what we're looking at is primary source texts. So something like that proverb, Muntungu Muntunga Bantu. We introduced that on Friday. Another proverb, and we start off every morning with a proverb. Another proverb that we introduced was, which translates to if you take your hand and touch one part of the spider web, it shakes the whole thing. And this is just the idea that everything is interconnected. So that's the example that I gave you before. So if your mother wasn't in the right place at the right time in order to meet your father, you wouldn't be here sitting hosting X Live FM. So this is the ripple effect.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them. So this is the ripple effect that if you shake one part of this spider web, the whole thing starts to shake. And this is why one of the praise names for Onyame is Anante Kokroko. Anante Kokroko, which is basically saying like the great spider. So you can look at the whole universe, all these things as knitted and weaved together into this great panorama, this lattice, right? So these are ideas that are very easy to understand because you can see the iconography. So what I did is I showed them the Artiame Poma that has someone touching the spider web, and this is a proverb associated with it. So what our ancestors did is that they were able to condense all this deep philosophy and thought, African deep thought, into forms that anyone can grasp and anyone can understand, except for those who've been miseducated, because they'll just see it and say, oh, look at this primitive linguist staff, right? Somebody touching a spider web. What is it at all? Oh, it's idol worship. And then they go about their way. So they are too dead in the head to even understand. This is a deep concept, a deep understanding, and it's something that is self-evident. You know that you are here because of your parents, because if not for them, how could you even have been born here, right?
I think due to time, we need to make way for the next show.
No problem.
But we need to finish this one. Like, my next question, like, what is the... Okay, so you started... What is the day-to-day...
Right.
Life at Fahudia this year,
right?
Like, and you told us you start everything by libation. So now the children there, everybody know how to pour libation.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and they even are rushing to see who's going to hold the calabash. Hey, I want to do it. No, I want to do it. No, I want to do it.
Okay.
And my daughter Amma, she's been doing it for the longest. So sometimes she'll even say the libation. She'll do it all herself. And then we have our morning pledge, which is we'll do that in Chi. And then we'll say Yanara Asasini, so we'll go through that as well. They come in, introduce the proverb for the day, then we go into the lesson for the day. Now the lesson could be, depending on who's teaching, it could be our story. We don't call it his story. We call it our story because we've learned enough of his
Instead
story.
of history, you call it our story.
Our story, right?
Okay.
Because we have to start with what should we know about ourselves. We've already tested what happens when you learn about everyone else, and then maybe if you happen to come in Dr. Kamba's class, maybe you'll learn something about your own self.
Yeah.
Let's try a different formula. We've seen what this formula does, and it creates all these things that we complain about, the doomsaw, the rough road, whatever. So let's try a different formula and see if we can get a different outcome.
Someone is asking that at what age would you allow your children to go for education in the classroom? Is it at a senior high level or university?
So this is even the misnomer because what they're getting is education now. If they go to someone else, then it's most likely from what I've observed, they wouldn't be getting education. They'd be getting miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education. Now, it actually, in terms of what their life goals are, my oldest daughter is 10 and she's already articulated what her life goals are, is that she'd like to be a chef and then she'd also like to be a farmer, right? So for her, then she's actually started her business. You can go to amakamban.com. So the school's website is abibifahundia.org. But we also have a youthpreneur, program. So it's not a thing of, once you get older, then you can start your business. That she's actually already started her business where she sells videos, where she's giving tutorials on food preparation. And that's on her website. So, again.
So listeners, you heard it. The 10-year-old girl has her own website where she's making business there.
Yeah.
She prepares African dishes and sell the videos to people out there.
Right.
We complete senior high school, university, and still fighting for job.
And they have the Unemployed Graduate Association of Ghana. This tells you that what you got in the classroom is far from education because all it taught you to do is go and work for someone else, not to create your own like we created at Bibi Tumi, like we created at Abibi Fahundia. It requires a different mindset in order to do that, but that's not the mindset by far that is created by the diseducation, miseducation, and anti-education system, which is all we have in Ghana at this point.
Quickly, we will wrap up that Abibi Tumi charts. Describe how the interface, how it is used.
Right, so
and what it is.
Very good. So Abibi Tumi Chat is one of our apps that allows you to chat, just like how, as a matter of fact, I saw a chat come through. just like how you would chat on WhatsApp or anything else, where you're able to send images, you're able to send voice,
Videos.
video, all these types of things, and
You
do it entirely
can you
for free.
create groups there?
You can create groups there as
Up
well.
to how many people?
There's no limit. There's no limit,
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah. No
Nice.
limit. So all of that is there, and again, this is what happens when we can create things for ourselves. So instead of waiting for some white enemy to allow you to create a group up to whatever number you want, we create it for ourselves, and then we're not waiting and depending. Because the same thing of saying, let me wait for someone to give me a job, right? Why would we wait when we can do it for ourselves, and then we don't have to follow the limits that they impose upon us? So yeah, that's there. And we're actually retooling the main website app right now, which is the abibitumi.com app. So we're looking to be done with that by the end of this month. So keep an eye on that. That's also going to have a chat integrated into it that will have the same features: video calling, voice calling. You can send a voice note. All of those types of things will be there as well. So we're on the move as African people, and we look forward to seeing you on the place to be, Abibitumi. If you're interested, you can also go to our website for the school. That's abibifahundia.org. Let me spell both of those. Abibitumi, abibitumi.com, and then abibifahundia.org. Now, Abibitumi translates to Black Power. I had somebody who's actually a speaker of Tree, but he didn't understand it. He says, black man can talk. He said, Abibitumi. He said, Abibitumi kasa.
Abibitumi Kasa.
No, I said, no, that's not it. It's Abibitumi
Kasa.
Kasa.
Yeah.
So it's the Tree language is tonal. So Abibitumi is what makes it Black Power. And then Kasa is language. So I was quite disappointed in that. If you have native speakers who can't even hear the tones of their own language,
But
I don't know what to say.
I have to ask you the meaning of Apro though.
Right.
Shout out to Akan.
No problem. Obinima obichre. Right. So, this is the thing, and I'm always learning all the time. So it's not a thing of, I'm such a guru, or I know everything. The only way you get to learn something is by humbling yourself and learning it. So all the things that I know, I had to learn from someone, but I had to see inside of myself, here's something that I don't know. Now I need to humble myself to get underneath someone who can teach me. So if I know Medu Necha, it's because of my Medu Necha teacher. If I know Capoeira, it's because of my Capoeira teacher. So you have to have that, functional humility in yourself to say, I don't know it, I need to learn it. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Doc, for blessing us with this enormous teachings today. We so appreciate it. We so appreciate it. If you have any last word, then that will be it.
Well, according to Bookman, who poured the libation and at the Haitian Revolution, he said, throw away the God of the whites who has brought down our tears and listen to liberty which speaks in all of our hearts. And I would also, share that with our African listeners, that we should throw away the image of the white man's God, because even this image of this pale white imaginary white boy on a stick, which I call the, white popsicle, that even this image is something that didn't even exist until the late 1400s, right? Under commission from popes like Alexander VI, Cesare Borgia took the image and decided to make that something. So go back to what it was originally. If you want to know about the Trinity, then you can read about the original Trinity of Saw, Set, and Heru, instead of the plagiarized one that has allowed your enemies to conquer you. You understand? So I would just share that. And, it's time for us to have a real education, that if we see Africa is at the bottom, it's at the bottom because of the things that we are doing, including, this miseducation, diseducation, and anti-education. If we want to be in any other position, we have to change those things. And that's what we're here for at Abibitumi. That's what we're here for at Abibi Fahundia Disiambia.
Quick one, and that's a question that somebody is asking, that you didn't answer my question about at which level would your children go out of homeschooling, and your answer suggests that it means they are going to have everything from home.
Yeah, that's exactly where we are. What I mentioned is that my daughter, because she is looking to be a farmer and she's also looking to
Be a chef.
That most likely she wouldn't be going into like a university type of system. If she does, that's her choice. But she, at this point, would have enough opportunity. She has her own business where she can create whatever it is that she's looking for.
Wow.
My son Kweku is 5. He hasn't made that type of determination. But if he decides, okay, I want to go to, this place or go to that place, now he has a foundation and a fortification to go there and realize. Like I took a course called African Philosophy at the University of Ghana, and all we started learning was Socrates, and philosophy is the name of the course. So, I wouldn't be sending them to a place where they would be taught by someone who knows less than them. You understand? So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Oba Delekambon.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
He is a lecturer and a research fellow at the University of Ghana, Institute of African Study Department. And I believe that with his presence, things are actually changing at the University of Ghana right there, right now. Yes. So once again, let me remind you, if you want a hassle-free land to buy, these are some lands that you can buy without a hassle. A new one in New Botiano, uncompleted school building. So those of you who want to go into school and all of that, you can go for that. And it's going for as cool as 760,000 Ghana cedis. One at Kaswa of Anko, IEJ River. A land without a building, that one is going for, that's a plot going for 40,000 Ghana cedis. Another one is a pure water factory building, uncompleted, going for 450,000 Ghana cedis. And the land with that building, also a plot at Awutu, Kwei, is going for 40,000 Ghana cedis. And 125 plots of land available for sale at Awutu area for a real estate, about 3,000 plots. You can also come for that one. So, and actually, the one that is giving this land for is saying that once you're ready for this land, he goes to the land registry with you to do the name of ownership and everything right there, and you have your land and do whatever you want to do on that. So if you are interested, call on 024 77 85 986. If you are listening or watching from outside of Ghana, make sure to add a country code, which is +233 24 77 85 986, and you get to buy any of this land for your project. That is that. And also, don't forget to sign up at abibitumi.com, which is abibitumi.com, and also download the Abibi Tumi chat on Apple Store and also on Google Store, and let's have a conversation. I think next time, by the time we have the next show, we'll be talking on Abibi Tumi chat a lot right there. So that is that. And thank you for listening. And the videos, those of you who wanted the video will be up on YouTube few minutes right after the show. So right. That is it. Doc, want to say something?
Yeah, real quick. And we'll also be launching abibitumi.tv. It's already up. We did the soft launch, but that will also be coming in order to replace YouTube. But I wanted to give people the references. So this isn't just Dr. Kambal's making stuff up. I want you to actually follow up and read it for yourself. So I mentioned Dr. Anthony Browder, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. I mentioned Kersey Graves, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors. Dr. John G. Jackson, Pagan Origins of the Christ Myth, Christianity Before Christ. Gerald Massey, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World. Godfrey Higgins, Anacalypsis. And, these are just some of the texts that I was reading from so that you can actually follow up and learn. This isn't believe Dr. Kamba. I don't want you to believe anything that I said. This isn't a church. What I want you to do is do your own research so you can come to know what is the truth and what is the falsehood in the spirit of Ma'at.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
So go out there, do the search for yourself and know whether what he's saying is true or not.